The Last Bite. The alien mother sat in the corner of the cold, broken ship. Her skin was pale, stretched tight over her bones. Her clothes were torn and dirty. Around her, the metal walls creaked as wind howled through the ruins. It was all she had now: rusted metal, bitter cold, and her child. Her baby lay in her arms, crying softly. The child was small, weak, and shaking. The mother looked down with tired eyes. She had nothing left, no energy, no hope, except for one small bite of food. She reached into her pocket and pulled it out. A piece of dried root she had hidden for 3 days. It was hard, dry, and had no taste. But to them, it was gold. She looked at the child, then at the root. Her stomach growled painfully. She hadn't eaten in days, but she didn't hesitate. She broke the root into 2 small pieces, one bigger, one smaller. Slowly, she brought the bigger piece to her child's lips. The baby opened its mouth and chewed weakly. The mother smiled faintly, even as tears rolled down her face. She placed the smaller piece near her mouth, but she couldn't do it. Her hands dropped. Her body was shaking now, too tired, too cold. She closed her eyes and held her child tighter. "If this is the end," she whispered in her own language, "then let me go holding you." But just as her eyes closed, she heard a noise. Crunch. Footsteps. Her heart jumped. Was it another beast? A hunter? One of the monsters that roamed these parts? She tried to move, but her limbs felt like stone. The footsteps came closer. Heavy. Strong. Not the steps of something crawling. They were boots. Suddenly, a figure stepped into the broken room. It was tall, wrapped in dark clothing, and wore a thick helmet with a glowing light. The light swept across the room and stopped on her. She froze. The figure didn't speak at first. It slowly knelt down, its hands open, showing it had no weapons pointed at her. The light on the helmet turned down. She could now see it was a human. A man. Her eyes widened. Humans were rare here. She hadn't seen one in years. Some said they were cruel. Others said they helped. She didn't know what to believe, but the man slowly pulled something from a small bag, a wrapped container. He opened it. Warm steam rose into the air. Food. Real food. The smell hit her nose and made her stomach twist in pain. Her child sniffed the air and cried louder. The man pushed the food gently toward her and then sat back. He said nothing, just watched. The mother looked at the food, then at the man. Her hands trembled. She didn't trust him, but the food, it smelled like heaven. She picked it up carefully and held it to her baby's lips. The child cried and grabbed it, eating fast. The mother watched, smiling, but suddenly, something broke inside her. She began to cry. Not soft tears. Deep sobs. Tears rolled down her dirt-covered cheeks as she covered her face. The man looked at her, confused at first. Then he reached into his bag again. He pulled out water, a small wrapped blanket, and a soft light. He placed them all near her, then backed away, sitting by a wall. He said nothing, just watched her and the baby with soft, calm eyes. The mother slowly reached for the water and helped her child drink. Then she wrapped the baby in the blanket. Warmth returned to the little one's face, and still, she cried. This stranger, this human, had brought warmth, food, and safety. He had appeared like a ghost in her darkest moment. For a long time, none of them spoke. Then the man finally said a word. "You're safe now." She didn't understand his language, but she felt it. His voice was calm, kind, strong, and that was the first time in many years that she allowed herself to believe she might survive. The ruins were still cold. The night outside was still dangerous. But in that moment, in that broken room, a spark of hope lit a fire. And it all began with a last bite, and a stranger who brought dinner. The human man sat quietly by the wall, his hands resting on his knees. The soft fire he had built glowed between them, warming the air just enough to chase away the cold. His face was rough, his beard short, and his eyes tired, but gentle. He didn't speak. He only smiled. The alien mother sat close to her baby, wrapping the soft blanket around the child again and again. She still could not believe this was real. The warmth, the food, the safety. It felt like a dream. She looked at the man. He didn't try to come closer. He didn't force her to talk. He simply gave, and now he waited, like he didn't need anything in return. Her child had fallen asleep now, full and warm. The baby made a soft sound, like a purr, and held the edge of the human's blanket with tiny fingers. The mother didn't stop it. For some reason, she trusted this stranger. The man reached into his pack and pulled out a silver stick. With a twist, it lit up like a small lamp. He placed it near them so they could see better. The mother stared at him. "Why?" she asked softly in her own language. Of course, the human didn't understand, but he tilted his head and smiled again, as if her question had a meaning even without words. She looked around. The shipwreck they hid in was still broken and dangerous. Wind still blew through the holes in the walls, but it felt different now. With this man here, it felt less like a tomb. The man took out a metal cup and poured something hot from a bottle. The smell was strange, but not bad. He sipped it and gave a small nod, as if to say, "Not poison." Then he poured a second cup and slid it gently across the floor to her. She paused, then picked it up with both hands. Her fingers were shaking. She brought the cup to her lips and took a small sip. It was bitter, but it warmed her chest. She looked at him again. This time her eyes softened. Maybe humans weren't monsters after all. The man took something else from his bag, a flat board with blinking lights. He pressed a button and a small screen lit up with a map. The mother leaned forward, curious. He noticed and turned it so she could see better. He pointed to a red blinking light. Then he pointed to the floor. He was showing her where they were. He tapped the screen again. A blue dot blinked far away. Then he pointed to the sky and mimicked a ship flying. He was saying, "Help is coming." Mother gasped softly. Could it be true? Was he calling others? Was rescue really on the way? But then her hope dimmed. She remembered others before. Others who promised help. But those rescuers took the strong and left the weak. She and her child had been left behind once already. She looked at the human with sharp eyes now. "What do you want from me?" she asked quietly. He tilted his head again, confused. She placed her body between him and her baby. Just in case. The man saw the fear return to her face. He raised both hands slowly and shook his head. "No hurt," he said softly. "No take." The words were strange, but she understood the tone. No hurt, no take. He smiled again, gently, like before, not wide. Not fake, just warm. The same way a father might smile at a scared child. The mother's heart beat faster, not from fear but something else. This man, this stranger, was not here to steal or use her. He was here to help. And in this cold world, that made him a rare thing indeed, a friend. The fire crackled softly. Outside, the wind howled again. But inside that broken room, something invisible began to form between them, a bond, a silent trust. The man leaned back against the wall and closed his eyes. Just resting, not sleeping. The mother looked at the baby, then at the fire, then at the human. She whispered in her own tongue, "Maybe, just maybe. The stars sent you." She placed her hand on her child's head, then looked at the man again, and for the first time in many years, she smiled too, not because her pain was gone, but because someone had chosen to sit beside her in the darkness and bring a light. The wind outside grew louder. It whistled through the broken walls like a ghost. The fire inside still burned softly, but the human man did not sleep. His eyes were half closed, but his hand never left the small blade beside him. The alien mother dozed lightly, holding her baby close. Every now and then she would twitch or whisper a word in her sleep. Fear still lived in her heart. The man stirred. Something wasn't right. Crunch. He opened his eyes fast. That was not the wind. That was a footstep. He stood quietly and grabbed his knife. He looked at the mother and put a finger to his lips. Shh. She woke instantly, eyes wide. She held the baby tighter. The man stepped away from the fire and moved toward the hall. The shipwreck was long and dark, full of shadows. His boots made no sound. He moved like a ghost himself. As he passed a broken door, he saw it, just for a second. Movement. He crouched and listened. Nothing. Then, a soft cough. Not human, not beast. Something in between. The man followed it, step by step. The hallway smelled like rust and death. He passed old wires, shattered glass, and torn up walls. He followed the sound deeper into the ship. Then he found it. A shape curled up in a corner. Another alien. Not like the mother. This one had darker skin, long arms, and one leg missing. The alien looked up, gasping for breath. The man raised his blade, but the alien lifted a hand, palm open. No. No. Friend. It wheezed in broken speech. The human paused. The alien's eyes were wide and full of pain. They come soon. It whispered. The man knelt down. Who? The alien shivered. The feeders. The ones with claws. Hungry. They smell blood. Yours. Hers. The human's eyes narrowed. How many? Don't know. The alien coughed. They follow the weak. They wait for night. The man looked back down the hall. The fire was far away now. He had left them alone, too far. He stood fast. I bring help, he said. Stay. But the alien shook its head. Too late for me. But you. Save her. The human nodded once and ran. His boots hit the ground hard as he raced back. The shadows seemed thicker now. The wind screamed louder. The old metal creaked with every step. He burst into the room. The mother jumped to her feet, ready to fight. It's me, he said, panting. She lowered her hands, confused. He knelt near the fire and grabbed his small beacon. Pressed a button. It blinked faster now. What's wrong? She asked in her tongue, even though he couldn't understand. He didn't answer. He picked up the child and handed the baby to her. She held the little one tightly. The man picked up his gear. A second knife, a flare, a chain. Then he looked at her. Danger, he said, pointing to the walls. Monsters? He nodded. Soon. She swallowed hard. Her legs were still weak, but she stood. We fight? She asked, frightened. The man paused, then shook his head. No, we run. But just as he said that, a growl, low, deep, right outside the wall. The baby whimpered. The mother held her breath. The man looked at the ceiling. The sound was above them now. Clack, clack, claws, sharp ones. The human reached for the flare and lit it. A red glow filled the room. He tossed it toward the door. It hissed, and then, a scream. Not human, not animal. A horrible cry full of hunger and rage. Then a body slammed into the wall. Dust fell from the ceiling. They were surrounded. The mother looked at the man. What do we do? He pulled her close, whispering, Trust me. He pointed to the hole in the far wall. Small, sharp edges, a tight crawl space. She shook her head. Too small. He pulled a cloth from his bag and wrapped it around the baby. Take the child. Go. Crawl fast. She hesitated. He looked her in the eyes. I stay. I fight. You run. Tears filled her eyes. I owe you my life, she whispered. He smiled. No, you owe it to her. She nodded, then turned and crawled. The baby didn't cry. Maybe it knew. The man turned back to the door. Another growl. A shadow moved in the red flare light. He held his blade tight. Come on, then, he said through his teeth, and the battle began. The alien mother crawled through the tight metal tunnel, holding her baby close to her chest. The sharp edges scratched her arms and legs, but she didn't stop. She could still hear the growls behind her. They were louder now, closer. Her heart pounded in her ears. Her breath came in short gasps. The baby stayed quiet, as if it understood how much danger they were in. She reached the end of the tunnel and kicked open a bent panel. It broke off with a loud clang. She crawled out into another dark room, this one smaller and colder. She looked around. No exit. Just crates, wires, and a broken control panel. She laid the baby down in a crate filled with old cloth, covering the child gently. I'll keep you safe, she whispered. Then she turned and waited. Back in the fire room, the human stood firm. The first creature dropped from the ceiling with a loud thud. Its skin was black and slimy, and it had glowing yellow eyes. Long claws clicked against the floor. Behind it, two more shadows slithered along the walls. The man didn't back down. He held his knife low and pulled a metal pipe from his bag. With a sharp twist, it hissed. Fire rod, a weapon, one shot. The first creature leapt toward him. He rolled sideways and swung the knife. The blade cut across the creature's side, spilling thick green blood. The beast screeched. The second one lunged. Next, the man fired the fire rod. A burst of heat exploded from the barrel, burning the creature's chest. It fell back, howling in pain. The third one circled around, fast and low. The man spun to face it, but it was quicker. It slashed his leg. Blood dripped. He gritted his teeth and stabbed forward. The knife sank deep into the monster's throat. It collapsed, but the first one was already back up. The man limped back toward the fire, breathing hard. His leg burned. He was bleeding, but he didn't stop. He grabbed a fuel can near the fire and poured it around the room. He lit it. The room exploded in flame. The creatures screamed. He staggered to the tunnel and crawled in, smoke choking his lungs. His blood stained the metal floor behind him. The mother waited in the dark, holding her baby tight. Every sound made her flinch. Then, she heard it. Coughing, crawling. A shape in the tunnel. She rushed to the opening. It was him. The human pulled himself out, his legs soaked in blood, his arms trembling. His face was pale. He collapsed beside her. She grabbed an old cable and tore cloth from her clothes, tying his wound. He winced but stayed silent. You came back, she whispered. He gave a weak smile. Told you I would. Suddenly, a bang echoed from the tunnel. One of the creatures had survived. The fire hadn't stopped it. The human grabbed his blade, trying to stand, but he couldn't move fast. The mother stood in front of him. I fight now, she said. She picked up a broken rod and waited. The creature crawled out slowly, burned but still alive. Its mouth dripped with thick green saliva. Its claws scratched the ground. The mother screamed and ran at it. She struck the rod across its face. It roared and knocked her back. She hit the wall hard. The man tried to rise, but his leg gave out. The creature turned to him. Then, crack. A metal beam from above gave way and slammed down, crushing the creature's back. The fire had weakened the structure. The weight had finally broken it. The room fell silent. The mother lay still, breathing hard. The human crawled to her. Are you hurt? She nodded slowly. Still breathing. He helped her sit up. They both looked at the crushed creature. Dead, for sure. Then at the child, still safe in the crate, sleeping. The mother turned to the man. You saved her. He shook his head. You saved us. She looked down, tears in her eyes. I was ready to die. Alone. You're not alone now, he said, and for the first time she believed it. Outside, the wind began to quiet, but far in the sky, something blinked. A light. A ship, Hope. Night fell harder than before. The stars above the broken ship were hidden by clouds. Wind whipped through twisted metal, making long, lonely howls. Inside the storage room, the human man and the alien mother sat close to the sleeping child. The human's leg was still bleeding under the cloth. His face looked tired, pale. The mother reached into a broken crate and found a scrap of wire. She tightened the cloth around his leg. "You need rest," she said softly. The man shook his head. "No time. Not safe yet." She glanced at the crushed body of the beast beside them. One survived the fire. There could be more. He nodded. They sat in silence for a moment. Then the baby stirred. The mother rocked the child gently. The human handed her a small packet from his bag. More food. She looked surprised, but took it with quiet gratitude. The baby nibbled on it, then smiled in its sleep. That smile gave them both strength. Suddenly, clink. A sound from the hallway. They froze, another clink, metal being dragged. Then, a growl. A low, deep sound. Not like the first beast's. This one was heavier. The human stood, wincing in pain. He picked up his knife, the blade still stained with green blood. The mother grabbed a long metal rod, gripping it tight. They moved in front of the child again. The growling came closer, then silence. The human took a slow step toward the door. His ears strained. Suddenly, crash, a massive claw tore through the wall. The mother screamed. The beast was huge, twice the size of the others. Its skin was armored, almost stone-like. Its jaws were wide, with 3 rows of teeth. One eye was missing. The other glowed red. The alpha. It charged forward. The human jumped aside, but his injured leg gave way. He fell. The mother struck the beast with the rod. It bounced off harmlessly. The creature roared and knocked her across the room. She hit the ground, gasping for air. The human dragged himself to his knees. Blood dripped from his leg. He reached into his bag and pulled out a small black device. He looked at the creature, then pressed a button. Beep. A high-pitched sound filled the room. The creature flinched, growling louder. The device was a sonic pulse, made for short range. Confusion. It bought them seconds. "Run!" the human yelled. The mother crawled toward the child and grabbed her baby. She tried to run, but the door was blocked by debris. No escape. The beast shook off the pulse and turned toward them again. The human pulled out a flare, the last one, and lit it. He tossed it directly at the monster's face. It exploded in light and smoke. The beast roared, blinded. The mother used that moment to dive behind a metal panel with the child. The human stood, barely, and grabbed a loose wire hanging from the ceiling. Sparks flew. Electricity crackled. He turned to the creature. "Come on," he muttered. The beast charged again. At the last moment, the man shoved the sparking wire into the beast's open mouth. "Zap!" The monster screamed in pain. Its body convulsed, muscles shaking wildly. The fire from the flare caught its fur. The beast fell backward, smoke rising from its mouth and back. It didn't move again. Silence returned. The human collapsed to the floor. The mother rushed to him, the baby still in her arms. "Stay." "Awake!" she cried. He blinked slowly. "Did we win?" She smiled weakly. "You did." His eyes closed. She checked his breath. Still there. Faint, but alive. The mother pulled him near the crate, using the blankets to cover his body. She cleaned his, wound with water and tore more cloth for bandages. She rocked the baby gently with one arm while her other hand rested on the human's shoulder. "You are strong," she whispered, "and foolish." The wind outside began to die down. Then, beep, beep, beep. A sound from the human's device. She picked it up. A small blue light flashed. The rescue signal. They were close. She looked at the man. "Hold on. Help is coming." She didn't know if he could hear her, but she would stay with him until the end, or until the beginning of something new. The night grew quiet again. No more howls. No more growls. Only the crackle of broken wires and the soft breath of a child sleeping. The alien mother sat beside the human man. His eyes were closed, his chest rising slowly. She kept checking to make sure he was still breathing. His skin was cold and pale. The wound on his leg had stopped bleeding, but he had lost too much. She pulled the last blanket over him and then tucked the baby against his chest. "You kept her safe," she whispered. She looked around the room, at the dead alpha beast, at the destroyed walls, at the dark ceiling above. Then she looked back at the man. "I don't know your name," she said softly, "but I will tell you mine." She touched his shoulder gently. "My name is Ayla." The man didn't move, but she continued speaking. "I had a mate once. His name was Corin. He was brave, like you. He tried to protect us when the first attack came, but they tore through him like paper." Her eyes burned with tears, but she didn't stop. "We ran. I hid in the tunnels. I carried our baby and left everything behind. Food, clothes, pride. I begged. I stole. I survived. But only just." She looked at the child now sleeping between them. "She is all I have left, my reason for breathing." She paused. "When I gave her the last bite, I thought it was the end. I was ready to die." She looked at him again. "But then you came." Her fingers shook as she touched his hand. "I don't know why you helped us. You could have walked away. You could have let us die. But you didn't." She lowered her head, her voice breaking. "You saved us. I can never repay that. But I will protect you now as you protected me." She wiped her face quickly and stood. The device on the floor beeped again, this time louder. Ayla picked it up. A new light blinked. Then a voice came through, broken and scratchy. "Human signal located. Preparing to descend. Hold position," she gasped. Her hands trembled. Rescue was here. She turned to the man. "Do you hear that? You did it. You called them." She gathered her strength, packed the few items they had left, and wrapped the baby tightly in cloth. Then she sat beside the man and waited, refusing to leave his side. Minutes passed. Then, boom. A soft tremor shook the floor. A craft was landing nearby. Lights appeared outside, blue and white beams cutting through the dust. A metal door slid open with a loud hiss. Figures stepped. Inside, 3 humans in armor. One of them knelt and checked the man. "He's alive," she heard him say. Another looked at Ayla and raised a hand, signaling peace. "It's okay," he said gently. "You're safe now." She didn't answer, just nodded. 2 of them lifted, the human carefully onto a stretcher. They carried him out through the smoke and wind. Ayla followed, holding her baby tight. Outside she saw it, a sleek white rescue ship with markings she didn't recognize. The sky above was clearing. Stars shone through again. Inside the ship she sat beside the human man as medics worked on him. Machines beeped, voices echoed, everything moved so fast, but she stayed calm. The baby held the man's finger in its tiny hand. As they lifted off the ground, the earth below disappeared in shadow. Ayla whispered to her child, "He gave us a second chance." One of the medics turned to her. "You speak?" She nodded. "A little." He smiled kindly. "Your friend is strong. He'll live." She closed her eyes and let out a breath she'd been holding for days. Then she looked at the human's face again. He had not asked her name. He had not asked for anything, but he had given everything. The stars passed outside the window. Ayla leaned close to his ear and whispered, "When you wake up, I'll tell you the whole story, and I'll make you a promise too." She touched her forehead gently to his. "You will never be alone again." The rescue ship floated above the clouds high in the sky, leaving the broken world far below. Inside, the soft hum of engines filled the quiet halls. Lights glowed gently along the walls. The danger had passed, but something deep and important had just begun. The human man lay on a soft bed, wrapped in clean bandages. His face looked calm now. His chest rose and fell, steady. He was alive. Beside him sat Ayla, the alien mother, holding her child close. She hadn't slept much, but her eyes were no longer full of fear. Instead, they held something new: hope. The baby was warm, clean, and full for the first time in weeks. She played with the edge of the blanket and giggled softly, unaware of how close death had once been. A medic came in and checked the man's bandages. "He'll wake soon," he said with a kind smile. Ayla nodded. "Thank you. All of you. You're safe now," the medic replied. "Where do you want us to take you?" She looked down at the child, then at the man. "I don't know," she whispered. She had no home, no family left. Her world had fallen apart. But this man, this stranger, had given her something no one else did, a reason to believe again. Suddenly a soft groan came from the bed. Ayla looked quickly. The man's fingers moved. His head turned slightly. "Hey," she whispered. "You're awake." He blinked, then looked at her, confused for a second. Then his eyes relaxed. "You made it?" he asked, voice dry and cracked. "We made it," she said gently. "Thanks to you." He looked at the baby. The child laughed and reached for his hand. He smiled weakly. "Still cute," Ayla laughed softly. "Still hungry too." He coughed a little and looked around. "Where are we?" "Rescue ship. You called them with your beacon." He nodded slowly. "Good." A long silence passed between them. No words were needed. Then Ayla spoke. "I told you my name. It's Ayla." The man gave a tired smile. "I'm Cole." "Thank you, Cole." He shook his head slowly. "No need. Just did what was right." She leaned forward. "You did more than that." He looked into her eyes. "No one ever helped me like that before," she said softly. "You didn't know me. I was dirty, tired, alone. But you stayed." He looked down, then at the baby. "She reminded me of someone." "Who?" "My little sister," he said. "Long gone now. I wasn't there when she needed me. I swore I'd never let that happen again." Ayla swallowed hard. She understood now. Cole didn't just save them. He saved a part of himself too. A gentle knock came at the door. A woman in a uniform stepped in. "Excuse me. We're approaching a refugee station. You can rest there, get new ID, supplies, housing, safe place." Cole looked at Ayla. Ayla looked at her baby. Then she turned to the officer. "Thank you, but I don't think we're ready to go separate ways." The officer tilted her head. "You're not?" Ayla stood up. "We're not strangers anymore." She turned to Cole. "You said we weren't alone, so maybe we don't have to be." Cole raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "I mean," she said slowly, "maybe you don't go one way and I go another. Maybe we go together." Cole was silent for a moment. Then he smiled. "That sounds better than anything I've heard in a long time." Ayla sat beside him and held out her hand. Cole reached out, weak but firm, and took it. They sat there, hand in hand, while the baby leaned on his chest, peacefully falling asleep. The officer smiled and left the room. Hours later, the ship docked. At the station, a giant ring floating among stars. Cole stepped out first, limping slightly but stronger than before. Ayla followed with the child in her arms. The three of them walked down the long hallway past bright lights and curious eyes. People stared, but no one said anything. Because in that moment, everyone understood. This was not a rescue. This was a beginning. A man who had given everything for strangers. A mother who had fought with nothing left. A child who had lived because two hearts refused to give up. Together, they weren't just survivors. They were a family, made not by blood, but by choice. Among the stars, that was all that mattered.